The sky split without ceremony. One moment it was the familiar pale dome, the faint shimmer that Saebyeok had lived beneath for generations, and then it was not. The tear opened along the northern arc like a seam giving way under load, and the screaming began before the sound of it had finished reaching the ground. The veil is opening. The wards are dead. Gods, the wards are dead. People poured into the square with their faces turned upward, hands raised and pointing at nothing that could be pointed at, the way people point when the thing they are looking at refuses to be real. Children were snatched up. An old man sat down in the middle of the road and could not be moved. The tear widened at its northern edge, and through it came the cold, not the ordinary cold of a frontier night, but the other kind, the kind that has no bottom to it, the kind that reminds you that the dark between the stars is not empty, but full of something that has never been warm. Myeong Daon walked into the center of the square alone. He was in his full vestments, the 9-layered white of the high reader's office, and he had his staff, and he had 60 years. He planted the staff and he raised his voice, and it was still a remarkable voice, steady, carrying, the voice of a man who had filled temple halls for 4 decades, and believed every word he said in them. Hear me, by the mandate, by the 9 names of the light, by 60 years of my unbroken service, mend, hold the wards, shelter your children as you have since the first dawn. I have kept your faith through every silence. Keep them now. Keep them now. The square went quiet. Even the children stopped crying, because when a voice that large commands silence, silence comes. The sky did not answer. The tear did not close. The cold continued to pour through it, steady and indifferent, and the stars beyond were the wrong kind of bright, the brightness of things that have never been asked to care. Myeong Daon stood with his staff raised and his voice spent, and the silence that followed was not the silence of a god considering its response. It was the silence of an empty room. He did not move for a long time. Then the staff began to shake. Mend. His voice had dropped to something barely above a whisper. I command, I beg mend. He stopped. He looked at his own hands on the staff. The way a craftsman looks at a tool that has just failed a test, he was certain it would pass. Something left his face that I do not think had ever left it before. It was never going to answer, he said to no one. It has not answered in 40 years, and I let them kneel anyway. The wall sections were already moving. Wol-yeong had not waited for the rite to finish. She had not waited for the rite to begin. The moment the first crack appeared in the veil's northern arc, she had been in motion, voice like a forge hammer, arms directing, her people flowing into the gap with the particular purposeful speed of soldiers who have drilled the same problem until the drill is faster than thought. Wall sections on the north gap, move. Gunners, you range it by the marks and you do not pray, you measure. The same drill, the same numbers every time. Get the children behind the iron. We have held a torn sky before, and we will hold this one, not with hope, with angles. I was working a brace fitting at the east anchor when she passed me, and I kept working. There was nothing to say. The thing that needed saying was being said by the iron going up and the children going behind it. Don't say a word to them about who was right, I told her, not looking up from the fitting. Just keep them alive. Being alive will say it better than we ever could. She gave me half a nod, which from Wol-yeong is a full agreement, and was gone. Seo-rin was moving through the crowd with a crate of braces, handing them out with both hands, her voice even and unhurried, in a way that I knew cost her something to maintain. You, this brace, that post, like I showed the school. You don't have to believe me. You'll feel it hold. That's all I ever asked. The man she handed it to looked at the brace, looked at the post, looked at the sky, and then did what she showed him. His hands were shaking, but his hands were moving, and that was enough. Seo-rin appeared at her shoulder, watching the crowd. He had the look of a man doing arithmetic in his head that is coming out better than he expected. They're taking the tools, Seo-rin, all of them. Look at their faces. They're not scared of us anymore. They're just scared, and they've worked out we're the ones with the answer that holds. She did not stop moving, but I saw her close her eyes for one step. The iron held. That is the plain fact of it. The wall sections went up across the north gap, the gunners ranged by their marks and not by prayer. The braces went into the posts, the way Seo-rin had shown the school, and the cold that poured through the tear in the veil met iron and angle and stopped where it was told to stop. Not all of it. Enough of it. I found the flowery-handed woman from the day before, standing at one of the braced posts, with her hand flat against the iron. She was shaking, not from cold, or not only from cold. Her boy was beside her, and he had something in his fist that he was not quite hiding. A small ruler, brass, the kind the school had been giving out. She had made him put it in the basket. I remembered her face when she did it. It held, she said when she noticed me. Her voice had the quality of someone saying something they cannot yet fully believe they are saying. The iron held, and the sky didn't. My boy kept his little ruler. He hid it from the basket. I was so angry at him. I was so wrong, and he was braver than me, and the iron held. She pressed her hand harder against the post, as though she needed to feel the resistance of it. Teach me what he knows. I never want to be this helpless under that sky again. I looked at the boy. He looked back at me with the careful eyes of a child who has been right about something important and is not sure yet whether that is going to be all right. Come to the schoolhouse tomorrow, I said. Both of you. I found Myeong Daon sitting on the steps of the temple, alone, in the middle of everything. He had set his staff across his knees, and he was looking at nothing in particular, or rather, he was looking at the crowd taking tools from Seo-rin's crate, which was a particular kind of nothing. They are taking the tools, he said, when I sat beside him. He did not look at me. From her, from the orphan, and the sky did not fall further for it. I told them every gauge was another tear in heaven, and heaven tore on its own, and the gauges are the only thing holding the cold off their children tonight. He was quiet for a moment. I have been wrong, engineer, for 40 years. The cruelest part is that there is no God left even to be wrong in front of, only the everyone. I thought about what to say and decided to say the true thing. You weren't wrong to want them kept safe. You were only wrong about what would do it. That's not damnation, High Reader. That's just being a person in a world that changed. We've all had to be that here. He looked at me then, for a long moment, with the eyes of a man taking a measurement he does not enjoy, but will not falsify. Then he stood and straightened his vestments and walked back into the center of the square. The crowd did not fall silent this time because his voice commanded it. They fell silent because they recognized the weight of what was coming, the way you recognize a structure failing not by any single sound, but by the quality of the sounds together. People of Saebyeok, hear your High Reader one final time, and then heed me never again. He waited until he had all of them. The cold was still coming through the tear. The iron was still holding. The light is gone. It did not leave today. It left long ago, and I knew, and I let you kneel because I could not bear to be no one. That was my sin, not yours, never yours. There is no heresy in the brass. There was only an old man's fear, dressed as God's voice. He paused. His hands were steady now, steadier than they had been during the rite. There is a particular stillness that comes after the worst thing has already happened, and he had found it. So I spend the last of my office on this. I release you. Take their tools, learn their numbers, build their walls, and keep your children on the living side of the dark. And when they tell you to trust no one, and check for yourselves, obey that, starting with me, especially with me. The square was very quiet. Then someone picked up a brace, and someone else picked up a gauge, and the line at Seo-rin's crate began to move again. Una found him afterward, at the edge of the square where the lamplight thinned. I was close enough to hear, and far enough that neither of them looked at me. You could stay, Daon. There is work here for a mind that can read the heavens. We have a sky to chart now that nothing guards it. You needn't be no one. You could be a geometer. He looked at her for a long time. The expression on his face was not grief exactly. It was something more precise than grief, the look of a man who has finally taken an accurate measurement of a distance he spent 40 years refusing to measure. You were always the better of us, Eunha. You read the truth and kept your faith with it when the temple failed it. I read the same truth and kept faith with the temple instead. That is the whole difference between us, and it is 40 years wide. He picked up his staff. No, let me go be no one for a while. I earned it honestly. He glanced toward the schoolhouse, where the line was already forming. The basket burners of yesterday queued at the door with their children beside them, and tools in their hands. Build your engine. I heard them speak of it. Build the thing that doesn't need a heaven. It is a better God than the one I served. It at least answers when you ask it properly. He walked away into the dark beyond the lamps, and Yunha watched him go, with an expression I did not try to read. By dusk the schoolhouse could not hold the queue. They spilled out the door, and down the steps and into the road, and Seo-rin was inside with 3 lanterns going, and her voice steady, and her chalk moving fast across the board, and the sound coming out of the building was the sound of people learning something they should have been allowed to learn 2 years ago. I found her at the door during a brief pause, refilling her chalk box. It shouldn't have taken the sky tearing open, she said. Her voice was even, but there was something under it. 2 years I taught here, and it took a catastrophe to do what 100 patient lessons couldn't. No, I said. The lessons are why anyone was ready to pick up a tool when it did. The catastrophe only opened the door. Your 2 years are what let them walk through it instead of just dying afraid. She looked at the line. The temple won't be back, Seo-rin. Not because we beat it, because the thing it spoke for finally, fully, stopped speaking. The frontier just changed gods, and the new one's only commandment is check. She was quiet for a moment. Then she went back inside, and the chalk started moving again. Later, when the wall sections were secured, and the cold had been pushed back to something manageable, and the children were behind the iron, and the queue at the schoolhouse had not shortened, I sat down with the engine drawings and looked at them for a long time. The veil was gone, not torn, gone. What had failed tonight would not be repaired, because there was nothing left to repair it. The dome of pale light that Saebyeok had sheltered under since before anyone living could remember had simply spent itself, and the sky above us now was just the sky, bare and starlit and vast and entirely indifferent to what happened beneath it. I looked from the drawings up to that sky. No shimmer, no pale light at the edges, just stars, the way stars look when there is nothing between you and them, which is to say, very close and very cold, and not unkind exactly, but not anything else either. The sky's empty now. No one's coming. I thought about the engine drawings, about the one remaining box on the schematic, the one I had been circling for months, the heart of it, the firebox and the cylinder and the governor, the part that would make the whole thing breathe, about what it would mean to have it running. What it would mean to have something in this valley that answered when you asked it properly, that held when you built it right, that did not require you to kneel. Good, then we'd better build the thing that means we don't need anyone to. I set my hand flat on the drawing, the way the woman had set her hand on the iron post, feeling the resistance of it, the realness of it. One box left, the heart. Tomorrow we light the first fire.